whole lot of loving is what we'll be bringing. We'll make you happy.
Hello and welcome to episode 29 of Schools with Heart. I'm Olivia LaField, and those of you who are still with me are definitely ready for some advice. In this case, advice about the importance of repeatedly using the SEL language of my curriculum. Repetition throughout the day of key concepts keeps the concepts alive in the hearts and minds of the children. Put simply, as you talk to your students, you imbue your language with the different SEL concepts. What are the key concepts I'm talking about? The skills of independence, emotional intelligence, growth mindset, the power of yet, the right thing, self-respect, the little red hen, hard work ethic, good, better, best, a better me, a better life, keeping the bar high, full potential, right heart. It's not about how smart you are. Grit, community, who's in control, the truth, courtesy, choosing happiness, valued employee, a positive atmosphere. Oh, it goes on and on. There's a lot to be sure. But remember, as I've said before, Rome wasn't built in a day. But for those of you who are 100% with me on making your SEL focus front and center, you'll most definitely see that one day at a time, it will all make sense as a comprehensive SEL approach that integrates beautifully into your academic curriculum. You'll see that as you learn the curriculum yourself first, it gets easier and easier. It only takes practice, and eventually it becomes second nature. I assure you that every year I get better as I add more and better ideas. Have faith in a growth mindset, and make developing the SEL focus your professional grit goal. Once you see how good it is for your kids, you'll no longer need my encouragement, and that is a promise. Okay, so now I'm going to give you some how-to examples of how to keep your SEL concept center stage. Let's start with the skills of independence. So after your kids know them by heart, you'll be using the exact words of the pillars all day long, all year long. Instead of the former way of asking them to get right to work, you'll say, "Thank you for being a self-starter who doesn't wait to be told what to do." Or you may ask, "Who was a self-starter when you came in the room today?" Or when you see a student wasting their time, you can ask what you could be doing right now to make wise use of your time. Say it in a kind way and wait for their answer. Or you can remind the whole class that when they finish their test, before others, to be sure to make wise use of their time. At the beginning of the year, make sure you briefly name what they could be doing so they know what wise use of their time entails. I always require my students to have a library book with them at all times. Reading is always wise use of their time. Wise use of your time. Those are key words that you can repeat any number of times throughout the day. Once they hear them enough times, they begin asking themselves, what can I do to make wise use of my time? Oh my gosh, that's what you want. You want them to internalize those words. But that doesn't happen until they've heard them ad nauseum. The key is repetition, repetition, repetition. Use the words from all four pillars in that way. Praise them using the exact words of the pillars, and guide them using the exact words. It becomes your new language of both managing your students and teaching them to manage themselves. Now let's talk about how to integrate growth mindset. First, of course, you have your fabulous bulletin board, and you've taught your students what a growth mindset is by showing videos, reading stories, praising for hard work and not intelligence, and giving rewards for hard work. Another idea is to start the day with a growth mindset chant that I included in my third book, the SEL poster book. To immerse them in your emotional intelligence focus, they will have picked 3 goals from the emotional EQ inventory, which they'll be writing about every day in their journals. That will keep them writing all year about emotional intelligence. In the morning, take time to focus for at least 10 minutes or more on SEL concepts like who can share an EQ goal victory. The student tells the class their goal and then the victory. This is so encouraging to other students who are then motivated to work harder on their own EQ goals. Emotional quotient, that is. Make sure you have the 80% quote poster in a prominent place, and from time to time point to it and ask, what percent of your success in life is due to your degree of emotional intelligence? Make sure they know the definition of emotional intelligence in their sleep. Emotional intelligence is being smart about my feelings and the feelings of others. When a student is kind, commend them by telling them that they were emotionally intelligent. Or ask the class, when Mary was kind just now, what did she show? You want them to answer, emotional intelligence, and then say, in other words, she was, and you want them to say, heart smart. At the end of the day, you can ask, who was emotionally intelligent today? Can you tell us about it? Always end the day with a couple of SEL questions, followed by the self-respect chant. Movies are a great way to teach the SEL concepts. For example, right now our upper grades language arts teacher is showing the movie Flipped, like the boat flipped over. But instead of showing it all at once, she's very wisely showing it for 15 minutes after lunch as a wind-down activity. To focus on SEL concepts from the movie, she generated a list of questions, and every so often she stops the movie and discusses one of the questions, which they can then they have to record on their papers. I highly suggest starting with Flipped for the upper grades, because the two main characters are perfect compare and contrast examples of the girl who was extremely intelligent from the beginning of the movie and the boy who eventually realized his lack of emotional intelligence and came to consciousness. So many other SEL concepts dominate the movie. Happiness as a result of making your life all about others versus suffering when it's all about you. Self-respect when you do the right thing. Hard work versus wasting time. Thinking for yourself versus following the crowd. The truth versus lies. And then the antagonist father in the movie is the perfect example of the opposite of everything that's good in the protagonist. It's also a perfect movie to show when you're teaching the elements of literature. It has it all. Static versus dynamic characters, the theme of good versus evil, and man versus himself. There's conflict throughout, an obvious climax, and a clear resolution. As you read my books, mark ways I write about how to integrate the SEL themes. Write them in a journal that you use specifically for your SEL journal. Use the SEL checklist that I included in the back of the poster book. I created it just for you to use as a way of checking how well and how often you're incorporating the many concepts. Some of them you'll talk about every day, some of them only a couple times a week, and only briefly. It's so easy to forget because there's so much. But the checklist will help you focus. Keep a copy of it on your desk as a reminder and glance at it often. Your SEL focus is a whole new approach to teaching. Be gentle with yourself and remember, what you're learning is what's best for your kids. You want them to first be better people, then to be better readers, writers, and mathematicians. That's a mindset switch that just has to take place before you make SEL your curriculum number one. It's about how being heart smart is more important than being head smart. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.